They got torched yesterday. Here's, I guess, the simple question. They lose 131 to 119. Should Jazz fans be worried about their, our, yours, and theirs? Should Jazz fans be worried about the note?
I think worried's a little strong. I think we've been telling you for probably a month now that at some point they're going to go on a losing streak, and that's where we are. That's what they're in. Losing last 4 or 6. You're building on hey, we lost 8 of 10, and now we got to figure out a way to bounce back. And I think that they're really fortunate in the sense that the next couple of teams aren't exactly tearing it up. So I wouldn't be worried, but I do think there's some major issues on this team that are starting to play out. What should we start with? Just bogey, I guess. I mean,
Yeah.
Is that where we're going to start? Because I think that was the biggest issue. That's clearly what held them back yesterday. And I guess the overreaching point is that you got this great game out of Rudy, a historic night. Everything's amazing. You breaking franchise records with 27 rebounds. Okay, awesome. And you still got blown out. And this is why I have such a problem with the contract. And this is why you got to do something with Bogey, because Bogdanovich is just getting beat constantly, consistently. Andrew Wiggins had his way yesterday. You've got even Nico Mannion at one point was able to get by.
Oops.
What's his face? Bogdanovich.
Kelly Oubre went right by him.
Yeah, and Nico Mannion.
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is yes. It's time to be worried about the Utah Jazz. It is. The record aside, when you lose this way to a mediocre Golden State team, and I know, again, you're a huge GSW hoop fan, but, I mean, they're not a great basketball team.
No.
Right? The Warriors, obviously, they've had their injury issues. They've had their Draymond issues. Like, they're not a great basketball team. They were much better for long stretches of that game yesterday. And what's really scary, the second unit of the Golden State Warriors were much better than the Utah Jazz yesterday. That's concerning. And I think that's what, when you look at the Lakers, the Clippers going to New Orleans and getting torched is not actually that surprising.
Mm-hmm.
The Jazz getting beat down by the Golden State Warriors is really surprising to me. And I think the decline of Bojan Bogdanovich is concerning. He cannot defend wings at all. And I tweeted it yesterday, and I know a bunch of people reacted to it, but I'll just ask the simple question, Jake. If Bogdanovich is not making threes, what's his real value to this team?
Yeah, there's not a lot of value to the team. I mean, it would be one thing if he was a really good defender and, he made threes sometimes, but that's not what it is. I mean, he's literally paid to make shots, and he's not making shots. And then on the defensive end, he's being leveraged to get easy looks. We saw it in the Clipper game. We saw it in the Philly game. We saw it in this game. And so it's clearly a thing where teams are watching enough tape on the Jazz now where they know where the weak points are. And so, yeah, that's great when Rudy's out there and he's defending the rim. But at some point, and this is what we've been saying, NBA teams are smart enough, they're talented enough, they're good enough to exploit other weaknesses on this roster. And so when we talk about the Jazz having, championship aspirations, this is what I mean when I say, hey, there are some of these areas that are going to prevent them from doing that if they do nothing about it. If you continue to run Bogdanovich out there, you're going to continue to give up a ton of points with Bogdanovich, which is going to put you behind. By the way, we haven't even gotten to the section of the show where we talk about the fact that now they're not shooting 50% from 3, and everything's not great from 3. We haven't talked about the fact that, hey, we've been telling you guys for 6-8 weeks now that if you rely on the 3, you're not winning a championship. And what are we seeing right now? We're seeing them lose 4-6 because they're not shooting well, because Bogey's not playing good defense. I don't care if Rudy is paid $200 million to get 20 and 27 on any given night against a team that doesn't really have a big, right? Like, it's not good enough. And this is what I'm saying. Like, it can piss you off as a Jazz fan if you don't like that I don't like Rudy Gobert, but at the end of the day, he's not going to determine whether you win or lose, as we saw yesterday.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things is if I look up and down the Western Conference, the impact of the Jazz is starting to wane.
Mm-hmm.
And not to be redundant, we always knew the Clippers were soft. We've been saying that all year long. The Lakers have injury issues, and they need a big. We know that. I don't know who this Jazz team is. Was it a fluke that they were that hot from 3? I mean, you don't shoot that well from three accidentally.
Yeah, I mean, they did it over a long period of time. I don't think it's a fluke.
Yeah. I mean, the question is, can you do that in crunch time? I don't know, because when Royce O'Neal and Bojan Bogdanovic don't shoot well, the Clippers are a better team, right? The Lakers are a better team. I look at the Suns. Everybody's sleeping on the Suns right now, and I'll just keep telling you, if they wind up trading DeAndre Ayton, look out, because the Suns are going to be a real handful in the Western Conference playoffs. Yeah. I mean, I would rate the Phoenix Suns as one of the most dangerous teams in the West right now.
Yeah, I think the thing that you have to be worried about, though, is if you're a Jazz fan, is the idea that you've got these other teams now. It's not just the Lakers or the Clippers that you have to worry about. We're starting to see other teams run out the same defensive strategy and the same quickness and the same mindset on defense that these other teams are. So, like, yesterday's a perfect example. Again, the Warriors don't really have great bigs. I mean, yes, you have a guy in Wiseman who's a rookie, who's really flexible, but he's not a difference-making player right now. He's still trying to earn his stripes in the league and kind of figure out what's what, and so he's still trying to get his feet under him. So I don't really count Wiseman as a guy who's, like, really going to affect a game. He might make some buckets, but he's not going to be the reason you lost. He's not going to be on Joel's level, obviously. So when I look at this Warriors team, what did we see them do yesterday for a long period of the game? We're going to go really small, we're going to be super athletic, and we're going to force you to do the things that we want you to do. And then when you're not going to do those things and you're going to try and do something else, we're going to create turnovers. And so that's what created the deficit in the game. They got the Jazz to turn the ball over. They got probably, I don't know, 7 to 8 easy buckets just off of turnovers where they threw it down the floor to an outlet. And that was a layup. I mean, that's 10, 12 points right there.
Yeah. Good morning, Gabe Ledley. Lopes fan Gabe. Lopes up!
Finally.
We'll tell the Dan Marley wouldn't call us because they lost stories coming up. He says, love daylight savings time. Now you guys get started when I'm wrapping up my morning cardio at 5:30 a.m. Hell yeah.
Well, there you go, bud.
I don't mind it at all. Eric and Raleigh, good morning to you. He is drinking the Gobert sucks Kool-Aid that you are serving every morning. He says the Warriors severely miss Klay Thompson. Jake spitting facts. Wiseman is 3 years from being an impact player in the NBA.
Agree.
I think James Wiseman is having an impact right now. If they run that little pick and pop play,
yeah, but like he's not. Yes, he's making shots, but it's not like you're fearing Wiseman right now.
No,
I mean, he's still a young guy.
But I think that speaks volumes about Steve Kerr as a head coach.
Yeah,
I mean his development of some of these systems and fitting a system to cater to his players.
Yeah,
you're back to point Draymond, which I think is incredibly impactful. For the Warriors, I think speaks volumes. Brandon Whiteside says, our guards can't guard anyone on the perimeter. Mitchell scores a bunch, but looks off to me. I agree. There's something off about Donovan Mitchell. I don't know what it is. He is usually remarkably consistent, and Donovan has become a player that is not as consistent as we're used to seeing, and I think it's creating problems for this offense and their flow. I don't think there's any doubt. I also think that he's not creating the volume of opportunities he was.
And I feel like as a player, he's got every player, no matter if we're talking LeBron or like the lowest player in the league, they always have something that they can develop in, an area of their game that they could get better in, no matter who you are. And I look at Donovan and I say, like, yes, this is your team, but sometimes it doesn't feel like your team when you're out on the floor. Like sometimes he is just way too passive. Like sometimes I wish you would just say, hey, give me the damn ball.
Yes.
Let me get to the line or let me score the ball. Like that's what the team needs when you're down by 10 to a crappy Golden State Warriors team. And I didn't see that yesterday. Like, yes, he took his shots, he did his thing, but it's kind of like this dynamic that you have to create as an alpha male. It's like the Devin Booker effect or like LeBron or any of these guys that Donovan Mitchell talent-wise has the ability to be on. All those guys are going to say at some point, hey, I need the ball. Let me go and do my thing.
Yeah, and I would hope that Donovan would get back to who he was because I think they need him, especially on the offensive end. They need that spectacular moment. They need that great drive and dish, that gets, Bogey or Royce O'Neal specifically, gets him that open three that really triggers the momentum for this Jazz team. And I think when you look at this lineup, You cannot give up 131 points to the Golden State Warriors. You cannot do that. You're supposed to be this elite defensive team, and I think that's slipped. And I think one of the things you're seeing that is so frustrating for Quinn Snyder and why you're seeing him so animated on the sideline is they're just having defensive lapses. And they should be dominating, and they're not. And when you have a historic night on par with what Rudy Gobert did last night, if you look at what Gobert did last night, I mean, it's impressive when you start realizing that there's only like 4 other people in history who have ever done what he did last night.
Well, and I think the interesting part of this, and maybe this kind of runs parallel to the Donovan Mitchell point about him not, making it so he gets the ball constantly.
Yep.
Is that when Rudy does this, like when he has a historic night, like watching the game, because we pretty much watched the whole game, it doesn't feel like he's like dominating the game. He's just kind of doing his thing, and this is why I say like you might be putting up big numbers, but there's a difference like 30 from Gobert, or like if he had a 30-20 game, let's say, like he just had 27 and 20,
right,
from Gobert, does not feel like a game where you're like, man, he like took over the game, he was unstoppable, like he just dominated them. The numbers say he did, but the feel in the game doesn't feel like he did because they're constantly trailing by 10, by 12, by 15.
Yeah.
And so it mitigates it.
I don't know how to feel about Rudy Gobert right now because I feel like this guy, I mean, he's incredibly valuable on the defensive end. His shot blocking and his ability to close the lane is unique.
Bro, they were minus 23 in this game yesterday when he wasn't on the floor.
Yeah. I mean, he definitely is an elite defensive player, but here's the problem. You're starting to see, especially when Quinn goes with this system where, and if you've noticed, I'm sure you have, I can't be the only one who's seen this, but I mean, he's 6 minutes into the game, Rudy Gobert is sitting on the bench, and Derek Favors is in, and they're trying to change momentum. I don't know if that's because they're getting off to these slow starts. I don't know. But what you're seeing is teams have changed the way that they play against the Jazz now. They're going smaller. They're attacking the paint more. How many games are we seeing now where the Jazz are getting beat on points in the paint consistently by smaller teams? And that's a troubling stat. I look at some of the numbers out of this game yesterday, and I just say to myself, Rudy's numbers are off the chart.
Yeah.
And they got beaten badly.
Yeah,
Rudy has a historic game, and they get beaten badly.
Yeah, and to me, I don't want to say it's not surprising, but it really doesn't shock me that we're in this situation. And it's really, to be very clear with what I'm saying here, I'm not sitting here saying that this is Rudy Gobert's fault. What I'm saying is that the reason that this is happening is because of the roster construction. You don't have enough guys who can score on the offensive end on their own. So
they're only playing 9 guys yesterday.
But the reason for that is, again, look up and down the roster. You don't have guys, even with the Ersan signing, he's not a guy that's going to create off the dribble. It's basically Donovan and Jordan Clarkson who can create off the dribble. Other than that, you don't really have a guy who has to be like feared off the dribble. Look at the Clippers or look at the Lakers. Look at teams that are on par. Hello.
Hey.
Look at teams who are on par with the Jazz, the Clippers and the Lakers. You've got Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, Reggie Jackson, Morris. You've got a bunch of dudes on the Clippers. With the Lakers, it's LeBron, obviously. It's Dennis Schroeder, obviously. When AD's healthy, obviously. Like, you've got a bunch of these dudes. And so I look at the Jazz and I say to myself, okay, I've got Donovan Mitchell. I've got Jordan Clarkson. And then what do I have? I've got a guy in Royce O'Neal who's sometimes, depending on the situation, I've got Joe Ingles who's a shooter, and that's his single highest and best use. He's not an off-the-dribble guy.
Yep.
I've got Bojan Bogdanovic, who is a turnover machine on both ends of the floor right now.
The numbers don't lie, yeah.
And so my point just is, the reason that we see this historic night out of Rudy, but we see a blowout loss for the Jazz, is because he's just cleaning things up. Look at him as like a broom in a dustpan, man. He's getting the rebounds, he's cleaning it up, and he's outletting it. And that's it.
A broom
that's
in
what
a
he's
dustpan,
doing.
man.
Hey, let me sweep up all this trash and let me kick it out to Donovan so he can run down the floor and get doubled. I mean, that's what we're talking about right now.
I mean, it feels like they've become a 3-point, live and die team.
Yeah.
I mean, if they shoot 34% from three, they're going to lose.
Mm-hmm.
If the Warriors shoot 51% from three, they're always going to win.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But I look at some of the other numbers in this game. I mean, you only had 24 assists in the game last night.
Yeah.
Warriors had 33.
And the Warriors are second in the league in assists, by the way. So you knew that coming in.
The Warriors had twice as many steals, 12-6. Like, these are numbers that should terrify you. You got beat 56-52 when Rudy had Rudy had what
27
points. All of them are in the paint.
Yeah,
and you still got beat.
And what does that? But what does that tell you too? That what that tells you is that NBA defenses, whether it's a mediocre team or an elite team, what do they understand here? Okay, here's what we understand.
Yeah.
We're going to play small. We're going to give them the offensive matchup of Rudy on a small guy because we know that Rudy's back to the basket game is awful. We don't have to respect that. We know that that's there, right? So we're happy to give that up. But what we're going to do is we're going to step out on the three-point line, and we're going to force them to take the shots that we want them to take, or they're going to have to drive. And if they drive, we know we're in a way better position to win the game.
Oh, I think there's no doubt you'd rather give up back-to-back layups to the Jazz than back-to-back threes.
Yeah.
I mean, because once their three ball gets hot, it's over.
Once they get going, it's over, yeah.
I also look at the rest of the league, and I start asking myself, who are the real contenders at this point? And who's going to do something to help themselves?
Mm-hmm.
I think this Jazz roster is what it is. I'd be shocked if they made a significant roster change before the deadline. I mean, I'd be stunned. I think the Clippers are open for business. I know the Lakers are open for business
100%.
For a fact.
Yeah.
I know the Suns are open for business for a fact.
Yeah.
Like, you look at the
Dallas.
teams. Dallas is, and I not listen.
You told us
I'm
so.
sexy and I'm good looking, and I'm telling you, they're shopping Porzingis.
Excellent strategy, sir.
I mean, it is what it is, right? I get to hose because the hoes like to hose. Anyway, the point is,
okay.
I'm not really sure what I said there, but the point is that you look at the Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks know one thing: they're not good enough to win a championship. So what are we doing?
Are the Jazz good enough to win a championship?
I don't think so. For the first time this year, I can say I don't think so. There is. I agree with the guy on YouTube who said something's wrong with Donovan Mitchell. Something is wrong. Brandon Whiteside, I think it was, said something's off about Donovan.
So are we saying it's injury, or are we just saying we don't know, but something's off?
Everybody's hurt at this. Something hurts on everybody.
Right.
Right? Donovan's still getting it. Like, how is he missing these dunks?
I don't know.
Like, it's oddities like that.
The rim is playing great defense lately.
Well, and he's taken a physical beating. If you look at Donovan Mitchell every night, he is on the floor at the bucket. They are beating him physically.
Who else they got to worry about?
Nobody. I mean, but this goes back to Jordan Clarkson too.
Uh-huh.
Like, it's all good that Jordan Clarkson's a gas can. He comes in, he scores. All right, that's cool.
Yeah.
Where's he in the final 2 minutes?
Nowhere to be found.
Right? Like, and Mike Conley. You need and again, Jazz fans, God bless you for your support of your players. You need an upgrade to Mike Conley because it's cool. He almost won the 3-point contest. I need buckets, and Mike Conley right now is not consistently making 3-pointers.
But he's never been that guy. This is what I love about the Mike Conley conversation. Like everybody was like, "Oh my God, they signed Mike Conley. We're going to the finals." And I'm just sitting here saying, when's the last time Mike Conley played a full season? Number one. Number two, when was the last time that he was a dynamic scorer? Somebody who was like difference making.
Yeah.
In the games where he makes shots, they're a way better team, right? In the games when Jordan Clarkson puts up 30, they're a way better team. So are we really saying that it's about these two guys? No, what we're really saying is they're a guy short. They need Bradley Beal. They need another dynamic scorer that can get it done, no doubt about it, 30 points every single night kind of guy. That's what they need. And without having that, you're going to continue to be in this vicious cycle where Quinn Snyder is going to have to like pull a rabbit out of his hat to get this team going. Because I'm telling you guys, again, I will continue to say this. You cannot be a 3-and-D team and think that you're going to win a championship because that's not how this game works.
You know, it's interesting. Marcus says, I tell you guys this every time you talk about the Jazz, so I feel like I say it every single day. They need somebody that's a badass in the paint. They need a Julius Randle type player. Look what he brings to the Knicks. Don't start. Marcus, don't start because I'm sure Barry's listening.
I would be so in favor of that move.
I agree. I mean, they need somebody that can play with
intimidator.
Yeah, they need somebody that can play with his back to the basket.
Yes.
Right? That's the real gap here. And I know that Quinn Snyder has this belief that you should always shoot more threes and you could never shoot too many threes.
But why does he have that belief? Because he doesn't have another choice. That's why. Like, this team, like, let me put it this way. If Quinn Snyder had a guy, again, Julius Randle, Bradley Beal, whatever guy you want to point to.
Right.
If they had this guy on this team, would Quinn Snyder really be sitting here saying, hey, we got to shoot as many threes as possible? No, he wouldn't be saying that.
But here's my question then. Why the fuck did you go get another Ersan Ilyasova?
Because what
was the point? Who, by the way, hasn't played a single minute.
The reason they did that, and this is going to piss people off, and I'm ready for it.
Wait. Let's single up on Jake.
Get ready. Let's go. Y'all ready? Y'all ready? The Jazz front office has a little brother complex. They don't believe that they can go and get the big, like, A1 trade player to come to this roster. They don't think that that's possible, in my opinion, which is why you settled and you went and got Ersan instead of taking a run at Bradley Beal or taking a run at Julius Randle or taking a run at anybody. I'm sure if I pulled up the NBA
Blake
free
Griffin?
agent list, Blake Griffin, good example.
Andre Drummond,
perfect. Like
Boogie
any
Cousins?
of these dudes.
No, not Boogie Cousins.
Any of these dudes, go and get them. But you went and got Ersan. Like I like the thought there, but that's not going to get it done.
And I'll just keep saying Jake's Twitter handle is SLC Supercars.
Yeah.
I still maintain that guys like Kevin Love that do dirty work are incredibly valuable to this team.
Yeah, Kevin Love would work.
Because they don't have a guy like that. Derek Favors used to be that guy. Derek Favors 5 years ago would be perfect.
Yeah.
But it's not 5 years ago, unfortunately. Right? So my feeling is they're in a situation where I don't think the Jazz can compete for a championship because I don't think they can win the West right now. Not the way they're playing, unless their play dramatically changes.
Well,
and they play much faster than they're playing. I just don't see how they win the West.
Well, I think on the other side of this though is that it is a 6-game stretch. They've lost 4-6. So like they are going through that stretch that we've like at some point every NBA team goes through a losing period. So the question really right now is going to be, okay, if we're pretty confident that they're not going to go out and get another player, what's it going to take for them to kind of climb out of this little rut that they're in? I mean, is this going to turn into? I really don't think that this is going to turn into, hey, we lost 16-20. Like, I don't think that that's going to happen. But, I wouldn't be surprised if they went out and went ahead and lost 8-10 or 10-12. If you lose 10-12, we're having a different conversation about winning the West. I think it's too early to say that.
That's true. Yeah.
I think it's too early to say that they can't win the West.
I don't think. Maybe you're right. Maybe can't is the word I should take out there. They won't win the West the way they are right now.
Yeah.
They want mentality-wise, rotation-wise, playing 9 guys.
Something has to change.
Yeah, you can't play 9 guys in the NBA every night during the regular season and win. I just don't think so. What's interesting is Will says, what about Otto Porter Jr.? Brandon Whiteside's Otto Porter Jr. Like everybody is asking, like, what does Otto Porter Jr. do? He shoots threes. He takes 3 shots a game. 2 of those 3 are threes. Like I love Otto Porter. I love him as a player. I'm a Chicago Bulls fan. Hence MJ, hence my flu game license plate on the Tacoma. Look, I get it. You're pissed. We all understand it wasn't a push off on B.
I personally would like an apology.
Well, by the way, would just like to point out, Curry did that to Gobert yesterday. I don't know if anybody saw that, bro.
Stop.
Don't know if anybody saw that.
Stop. SLC Supercars.
I don't know if anybody saw that.
But Otto Porter isn't. What does Otto Porter bring to this team that makes him the right fit? He's not a guy who plays you 30 minutes a night. He's not. He can't be. Not on this team. Not. And by the way, I would point out, I think he's 28, 29 years old, 27, 28. Like he's not a young guy anymore in this league. He's somebody that averages 15, 20 minutes a night.
Right.
Like looking at his numbers, he shoots 42% from the floor and 38% from 3. You have that already.
Yeah, you've got a bunch of that already.
You have, with all due
The
respect,
Julius Randle poll is the better one.
yeah, I think that's the guy. Like, Andre Drummond ain't coming to the Jazz because he's going to go play for the Lakers. Again, I'm just saying. But I go back and Mikey is saying, this all goes back to your takes on the draft, which I used to think were stupid. I remember you and Gunther, yes, thank you. Thank you. I remember Gunther too. Those were some fine days in my life. I remember you and Gunther arguing over this. I used to think, no way. Now I say he was right. And Mikey, I appreciate that because this goes back to wasting picks. You essentially turned all those wasted picks into Donovan Mitchell, which is cool, but you should have Devin Booker and Donovan Mitchell, right? Dante Exum was a waste. Rodney Hood was a waste.
Trey Lyles
was a waste, but you turned Trey Lyles into Donovan Mitchell. So, okay, I'm good with that. Trey Burke, complete waste.
Dante Exum.
Complete waste, right? Like, it is, I'm telling you, this team is suffering from not having a depth of talent. Like, I like George Niang, and everybody loves him. Oh, he's so cool. He's not. He's not. He shoots the three really well. That's great. They're like,
How many guys we got on the team that can shoot a three, man?
All of them.
How many guys we got on a team that's shooting 35% or more from three?
A lot of it.
Oh, wait, until we get into the game, and then we're just going to go 1 from 7, Bogey. We get it, bro. We get it.
I'm telling you, he's the problem.
Yeah.
You have to find a better Bogdanovich.
By the way, there may not be a better example of the Jazz playing a team that is elite in the draft than the Warriors yesterday. What did we see out of the Warriors yesterday? Wiseman, Nico Mannion, like all these guys that they drafted, even Steph they drafted. Like all these, their team is built on the draft, and look where they are.
Tyler says nothing will change until something changes.
Yeah.
Well, okay, Tyler. I mean, that is.
But he's not wrong.
Daylight savings time is clearly bringing the best out of Tyler.
He's not wrong.
Cock-a-doodle-doo.
Well, he's not wrong, right?
Well,
the Jazz are never going to win a championship until they say, okay, listen, we need to actually bring in legit talent into this squad. Like, come on.
I love it. I do. Who's the best?
I'm glad that people are coming around to what we're saying, bro, because we've been saying it for a while.
And I'm good looking. But the point is, who's the best team in the NBA right now?
It's still the Nets.
I think it's still the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah.
Well, I look at some of the games yesterday, and, Famous Los on Instagram makes a really good point. Maybe it is time for Point Zion. Mm-hmm. Because I look at the way they're using Zion Williamson now in New Orleans. They're starting to figure out that guy can't shoot.
Yeah.
Like, he can't.
I'm glad it only took him years to figure that out.
Right? Like, Zion Williamson, he's got to be 375 pounds. I mean, I'm not even joking. Like, I'm a guy who knows 3 bills. I mean, I'm only 205. But anyway, the point is times 5. But the point is,
right?
He's got to be 350. He can't. What do you think he is legitimately? He's 350.
Probably.
Has to be.
Let's see.
Right? I mean,
let's see what he's officially listed.
No, don't, because I'll laugh. They're using him at point. They're doing what Golden State does with Draymond. And goddamn if it's not effective.
He's listed at 284.
Come on.
Get out of here, dog.
Come on.
You're at least 300 pounds.
His testicles are 280.
Yeah, come on.
You know what I'm saying?
Come on.
I just commented on it. Anyway, the point is, they're finding that it's really effective. And it was awkward when him and Brandon Ingram were both really hot. And, they were scoring because it took away from one of the two.
Right.
Now, what you're finding is he's able to drive and kick.
Yeah.
He brings the ball up. He distributes, cuts to the paint. They find him, alley-oop dunk.
Right.
They find him, layup. They find him.
He gets high percentage looks, no doubt.
Yeah, he kicks open threes.
Yeah.
Right? It's working for them. And what you're figuring out is Lonzo Ball's a little better off the ball. Mm-hmm. They're a little faster when Zion runs up the floor. Mm-hmm. And what happens is he demands 2, 3, 4 guys.
Well,
other guys are wide open.
And his matchup in games is going to be a bigger guy. And he's faster. So it's already a matchup problem.
By the way, the other team I think you got to start talking about is the Miami Heat. Mm-hmm. The Miami Heats.
Right.
The Miami Heat are playing much better basketball.
Yep.
Now, having said that, I think they're only, 3 over 500?
Yeah, they had a rough first half, no doubt. But we brought this team up again 2 weeks ago.
Why are you being nice? They were garbage in the first.
Yeah, I mean they had a bad first half, dude. No doubt. But again, they played in the NBA Finals in the bubble. Like, I get it.
Now, not to be a jerk about it, but what changed their season? The grit and determination they showed against the Utah Jazz. That game, a lot of those guys are pointing to that game and the shot making that happened in that game. And Jimmy Butler kind of coming out of his shell fully and being healthy enough to play, right? Like that, to me, that was a big game. I look at some of the other things yesterday. Like, I don't know how many games the Rockets are going to wind up winning this year, but the more and more you see them get swooped, the more you kind of feel like, well, maybe Victor Oladipo is available.
Go get him.
Maybe
Go
he's
get him,
available.
dog. I mean, I like, again, he might be the best example of what I'm talking about for the Jazz.
And the other guys that really comes to mind that I think is interesting that's available depending on who you listen to, CJ McCallum, when he comes back, again.
Man, dude, I don't know.
How long, if you're a Trailblazer, how long do you hang with that build? If you're Portland, I think at some point you just have to say, hey,
Here's the problem. You're in a no-win situation if you're Portland because you're not good enough to win the NBA Finals. But if you let them go and they go and win somewhere else, you look like an idiot. So what do you do?
But you're not winning. I mean, obviously with Nurk being hurt, I mean,
your team just isn't good enough to win. That's the fact. Like, that's just how it is. Like, this year, like, honestly, like,
I don't disagree with that.
It is, if you ask me honestly, who's going to be in the NBA Finals? Okay, it's going to be somebody versus the Brooklyn Nets. Like, that's legit what I think is going to happen. I think that KD will come back at some point. I don't know when that's going to happen, but he will come back at some point.
Yeah, his injury's a hamstring.
So, like...
But why rush him back?
Yeah, you don't have a need to rush him back. You're already dominating the East with two guys. Like, you're good.
And by the way, this is what worries me about Klay Thompson. Those hamstring soft tissue injuries happen and are more likely to happen when you rehab off of an Achilles that turns into a knee that turns into a hamstring.
Yeah, he's not... initially when he had that injury, there was thought that he may be able to come back if they were able to scrape into the postseason. But he said the other day that he ain't coming back till next
Klay?
year. Yeah,
Klay. Oh, Klay's done. Yeah. He almost broke down crying the other day talking about his injuries. Sean makes a great point. The Heat have the same problem the Lakers do. They didn't really get a break.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good point, Sean. Like that. I mean, there's no way. That's why it was so remarkable the Lakers started as fast as they did. By the way, that Alex Caruso headbang, oh my God, that looked terrible.
Yeah.
And, by the way, Anthony Davis is out the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Like, forget it.
It's over.
He is out at least 2.5, 3 more weeks.
I just don't, listen,
We're
I don't
into
know.
April at that point.
Like, I don't know. You want to talk about a team that just should not be pushing anything? Think about this. Legitimately take a second and think about this as an NBA fan, no matter who your team is. If your team... Like, let's say that Donovan Mitchell had this Achilles issue that Anthony Davis has. If you're the Jazz, would you really be pushing Donovan Mitchell to come back early? Like,
I don't think I would.
Like, with the Lakers, there's just zero incentive to rush him back. And my biggest fear for the Lakers is that particular injury is not like a broken bone or like, any kind of tougher injury. It's one of those injuries that as long as it lingers, it's always going to be there. Like at any given time, even if he felt 100%, when you have that issue, it could be just one wrong step and that's it. It's done. You're completely out of commission. And that's terrifying, man.
Yeah, I tend to be more in the line of you don't fix Achilles injuries without surgery.
Yeah.
And whether it's a tear or a partial tear.
But the thing is, like they haven't even come out and said that he's got even a partial tear.
Well, by nature, Dr. Monty is speaking. Please take note.
Can you do the thing with the camera? Like, can you individual it?
Hello. Anytime you have the word strain and muscle, there's a small tear. I don't know how many people realize that. It's a matter of what grade strain it is to determine what level of tear it is. When you say, "Hey, I pulled my hammy," that's a level of strain, and you have some kind of tear in there. Now, I'm terribly vexed. With a calf, forget it. Anytime you hear calf strain, and it's an explosion sport, you're screwed. I mean, whether that's the NBA, you don't want to hear it in the NFL. The things in the NBA you don't want to hear, high ankle sprain, That's a month at least.
I'm screwed.
High ankle sprain is when you almost break the bones in your lower leg.
Ugh.
Yeah, man, I'm good.
Ugh.
You don't want to hear high ankle sprain, and you don't want to hear calf. Obviously, things like ACL, knees, okay, those are terrible.
But at the same time, with ACL and knees, like I feel like that procedure's been done like thousands of times, and now like you're good.
You know what's got to be done.
Yeah, you're good now.
You're having
good.
surgery. See you in 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's
cool.
it.
With a calf strain, it's Kevin Durant. Well, is he healthy? Can he play? Well, look at him in practice. He can jump. He can shoot.
You know what the funny thing with the whole Kevin Durant thing that I thought at the end of that whole conversation, because in the middle of it, I was a big proponent of, hey, like, you got to lay it out there on the line. You're in the NBA Finals. I get that you have this injury you're nursing.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening? He ends up popping it. And, he said as much himself that, that he was going to play either way because it's the NBA Finals. Like, what else do you play for? If you're going to sit out of the NBA Finals, like, what was the point of even putting your body in that position, And so now I feel like it's interesting to your point that he's got this hamstring thing he's nursing. I'm not saying that the two are related, but what I am saying is that you're starting to see a guy with his build and his body, his legs are starting to fall out from under him. That's what is worrisome to me, which is why I want him to win this year.
Yeah.
I want him to get he needs to win this year and get it done.
I look at some of and I think that's a really good point. I look at some of the injuries the Lakers have, and that same thing comes to mind.
Yeah.
Right? Like I agree with you on Anthony Davis, but I also start looking at Jared Dudley done for the year.
Yeah. See ya.
Right? I look at it. I look at Caruso. I look at the Marc Gasol and health and safety protocols.
Mm-hmm.
They're lacking bodies right now.
Yeah, they're depleted.
I mean, this is a team that needs going and getting an Andre Drummond. Not only brings you a body that can be effective, but I think it gives you a shot in the arm.
Yes,
and I think the Lakers desperately need that. And if AD comes back in late April, okay, cool, great. But I think if you're the Lakers, I think you need to go and add. Just thinking that Anthony Davis isn't going to be here for the rest of the year.
Yeah, if you're operating with the idea he's going to come back, you're making a mistake. You got to assume the worst.
And the other thing that I think you have to think about with the Lakers, I'm telling you that you just can't write off another year with LeBron James because how many years is he going to be at this level?
Well,
with some people thinking he's off, I think he's playing great basketball. I don't think that he's struggling at all.
I think that, and this is something I feel like we've always differed on. I think that you can't disagree with the idea that he's not the same player he was even when he was a Cav the second time. The LeBron James that we're seeing as a Laker is playing the game in a different way now than he was even then. I mean, he's not the guy who's just going to take over games anymore. Now, he's telling us, the hype machine is, I'm going to know when it's time to turn it on. I'm going to know when it's time to really start applying myself 100%. And if that's the case, I would love to see that. I mean, honestly, you start looking at the league and you start seeing how many guys are at the back end of their career. You've got LeBron, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Steph Curry. You've got all these dudes who are leaving the league. And this league is not going to be anything close to what it is today once all those guys are gone. This league is going to be completely different. And that's going to suck. So when I look at LeBron, I am saying, yes, he's aging. I don't have any doubt. If you watch LeBron consistently and you have the last decade, there's a noticeable difference between now and before, which is fine. That doesn't mean he's playing bad. But when we look at the Lakers, he's not. You can't expect him to carry the Lakers now the same way he did the Miami Heat then. That's just not a fair thing to ask of the guy.
Well, and I agree with that. You have a week and a half until the NBA trade deadline.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a week from Thursday.
Which is a long time. You've got plenty of time. You've got days.
But Andre Drummond's a critical factor in this. I mean, they tried to get Blake and missed. I think that's probably addition by subtraction.
Mm-hmm.
I think if Brooklyn beats you to Andre Drummond, you're in trouble. I mean,
you're already in trouble. If they get...
I think if the Lakers get Andre Drummond, they can compete with Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
They can compete. I didn't say they're better than.
Right, they can at least be in the game.
They can compete.
Right.
And then if you get Anthony Davis back, and there's a lot of people who think that they would love to have Anthony Davis, Montrezl Harrell, and another big.
Well, it's a lot of size, man.
so that you can play two of those three guys together.
Yeah.
Montrezl Harrell and Anthony Davis together are a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
If you can relegate Marc Gasol to the bench and you can start Anthony Davis and Montrez or Anthony Davis and
Yeah.
now you're better than Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know that Anthony Davis comes back. I
Just don't know why you'd rush him back on any level.
And again, I'm just telling you, don't go looking past the Phoenix Suns. Don't. Because they're also going to go and get somebody.
I really hope they pull the trigger on the Ayton trade. I would love to see that.
Well, we'll see who wants him. I mean, DeAndre is he's the only difference with DeAndre Ayton is he can really shoot.
Yeah.
He has a mid-range game, and he is working diligently to add a three-point shot that he can make consistently.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced he ever turns into that guy, but he is just not good defensively. He is just not a guy that I don't know that there is a ceiling on his defense.
But even offensively, he's soft. I mean, he's a soft guy overall.
Yeah, but you know what I like about DeAndre? If you just tell him, which Monty Williams has, just rim run.
Yeah.
That's your only job is to rim run.
Yeah.
And he's going to get layups on the break. He's going to get alley-oops, and he can pass.
Yeah.
The guy can actually pass
He is
the
a
basketball.
skilled offensive player. There's no question. I mean, he's
Yeah.
got a polished game, and I think that's what brings him value in the trade market.